So Photoshop is a tool originally designed. Sorry, guys, can I get your attention? It's a tool originally designed for manipulating photos, Photoshop, right? But now artists, digital artists, use it for drawing, still manipulating photographs, and doing loads of things. It's sort of the default two-dimensional raster image processing program. And so we're going to be using it here in our class just for a couple of things. I said just a moment ago you're going to render out the skull, and you're going to render it out from two views. Now your skull will look different than this. You'll have the eyes in place, and you will have the tissue depth markers in place. Are you really that cold? Okay. You must be right under the thing. Okay. And so once you get the tissue depth markers and the eyes in place, and then you're also going to use it to make measurements. So we know how to measure a few things on the face. I'm getting away from Photoshop now, but just a reminder for the quiz, we know how to place the eyes, right? We know where the corners of the eyes go and how the lids go over the eyes. We know how to figure out the width of the nose. We know how to figure out where pronasale is. What else do we know? We know how to figure out the width of the mouth and how to place the oral fissure, so where the lips meet. So we're going to be doing all of that stuff in Photoshop. So the interface for Photoshop, yours will likely look different than mine when you first open it, but the important things for you to have open are the toolbar here. So this has just a little floating palette with all the different tools you use, such as this is like a move tool, a selection tool, a paintbrush, and a ruler tool. So you're going to be using those things. Sorry, can you guys just talk after? Thanks. If you don't see the ruler tool, it's under the eyedropper. So any of these menus that have a little arrow underneath them in the corner, if you just hold them down, you can get the rest of the tools that are listed underneath. So we're going to use the ruler tool and some others. So you've got your main interface here for seeing the image that you're working on. Another important thing that you might not see when you first open Photoshop are these rulers that go in the horizontal and the vertical here. If you don't see them, the shortcut for that is Command-R to turn them off and to turn them on. You can also open those up under the View menu and turn on rulers here. And what the rulers allow you to do is to pull down guides. So we'll talk about the layer menu in a second, or layer palette in a second, but on a layer I can grab in the ruler and just drag down. You can see it pulls the line down. So if I want to do a measurement along the orbital fissure, which is 2 millimeters up from the incisal edge of the upper incisors, I'm way too far out to measure this accurately, but I can put one guide there. I can zoom in. So zooming is holding down Option and scroll. So I can put a guide here. I can make a measurement of 2 millimeters just looking up at the top. This is so something like that. I can drag down another one. So that's what the guides are useful for, figuring out stuff like that. And then once I figured out where the width of the mouth was, remember, figure out the width of the mouth is measuring from lateral canine to lateral canine and multiplying by 1.33 to give you the Kellyan to Kellyan measurement. Then I could bring some rulers out to get lateral canine, guides out to get lateral canine, and make the measurement between these. I haven't set up the measure tool on here yet, so probably won't get anything accurate, but we can use that for measurements. So that's rulers and guides are very important. Our toolbar. Now probably the most important thing is the layers palette here. So I'm just going to open up a brand new file. So if we have something like this, you can see that we've got a layer here. So if you don't see the layers palette or any of these windows I'm talking about, you can go to the Windows menu and find the ones you're interested in. So I need the layers palette, which is already clicked here. F7 is the shortcut. And right now this has got a white background. If I want to create a new layer, slightly off screen here, I'll just make it a little bit smaller. I can click on this little new page icon down here and it will create a new layer. So something, you have to think of these like transparent acetates. If you probably don't know what transparent acetates are, but just transparent plastic that you can paint or draw on. And then where you don't draw, it's see-through. So for example, if I, let's say if this one was filled with a color, and then if I use this upper one to draw something, I'm a medical artist, you know. So you can see that because they're on different layers, you can turn one off, turn the other one off, and they don't influence each other. So what that means is when we're working on our skulls here, so I've got a layer with my front view that I rendered out of Maya, and the side view, which I rendered out of Maya. And then when I want to do measurements or make marks, I do other layers on top of those. So I don't want to accidentally, which I did on this one already, I don't want to draw on the skull layer. If I do that, if I forget to change the layer and draw, oh, I can't because I locked it, because I'm smart. But if I do that, then it's a problem because now that's attached to this layer. It's going to upset things. Photoshop is aggravating in the way that you have to undo like any other program in the world. If you want to undo, it's Command Z. But if you do Command Z, again, it's a redo. So you have to do Command Option Z to keep undoing. Strange, eh? So if you have a layer in here that you don't want to draw on accidentally, you just select the layer in the Layers palette and click on the lock icon up here. And then I can't inadvertently draw on it. It'll give me a warning. So for example, I put a couple of eyes on here, or maybe just one. Oh no, there are two. So if you want to move something in Photoshop, you can click on the layer that it's on, so eye number 2, and then use this move tool here in the toolbar and grab it and you can slide it into place. Yep, it's almost Halloween. Yeah. I'm going to put this up during the test. Just staring at you. So we could actually do this measurement here rather than in Maya. But of course, remember placing the eye, it's not just in the orbit this way, but you have to look at it laterally. And we talked about how the eye, and you read about it, is a line that passes from the supraorbital ridge to the inferior orbital ridge will pass through the cornea and just at the level of the iris. So that's easier to do in Maya than it is here in Photoshop because you have to take into account the 3D shape. So you can move things around, and just like display layers in Maya, you can turn these layer visibility on and off. Okay, so let's do a simple measurement. We're not going to talk about the nose right now because it's too complicated, but we can do the mouth. Okay, so let me just demonstrate how to set up your ruler tool again, and then how to make the measurements and do the calculations. So when you render your thing out of Maya, sorry, just checking the time. When you render your images out of Maya, there's going to be this black cube visible both in the front and the side view. So if we look in Maya here, I've already included that, this cube, which is visible from the side and from the front. So when you render out of Maya, that will appear here. And this is a 1 centimeter cube. So we can use this to calibrate Photoshop. So I've done this already, I think, for this file. But if you want to make a measurement in Photoshop, you use the ruler tool, which is here under the eyedropper. And if you do that, it will give you a measurement up here. So just clicking and dragging gives me a different measurement. But right now, this is only related, I think, to the number of pixels that it's measuring. So the pixels are the individual dots in an image, right? So what we have to do is tell Photoshop what 1 pixel equals in the real world, how it relates to a centimeter. So to do that, we can, I'm just going to click away from this and then open the ruler tool again. If you go to Image, and again, this is CS6 in this version of Photoshop only, unfortunately. If you go to Image and Analysis, we want to set the measurement scale. And by default, it's going to be set to pixels. You're measuring the number of pixels. We want to go to Custom. And here we just have to say that 1 pixel length is equal to some number of centimeters. So we just have to say centimeters. This is just an abstraction anyway. So right now it says your ruler tool has been activated while this dialog is open. You may use it to measure the pixel length for use in your scale. So I want to tell Photoshop how many pixels should appear in 1 centimeter. So I'm going to zoom in here to one of these cubes. I'm going to try and move this out of the way. Oh, so another thing about navigating in Photoshop, similar to working in Maya, but different enough to be frustrating, is that if you want to pan back and forth like this, you hold down the space bar and you can drag back and forth to move your image. So it's close to Maya, but not quite. So I can zoom in by option scrolling. Now I want to get in really close to this square until I can even start seeing the individual pixels here, and then just drag out a measurement from one corner to the other. Now if I hold down Shift after I start dragging, it will lock it into the horizontal. And if I release it now, the measurement scale says 118 pixels equals 1 centimeter. So now we've calibrated this image into real-world units. Okay. So now that I've done that, if I want to measure the mouth, for example, so measuring the mouth, go from lateral canine to lateral canine. I've already put a couple of guides here for that. So now, if I just zoom in, so here's central incisor, lateral incisor, canine, then PM1, PM2, premolar 1, premolar 2, then molar 1, 2, 3. So the numbers get bigger. So you go back. So if I do a measurement from this canine, holding down Shift to keep it straight, going over, we get a measurement of 3.92 centimeters. You can just jot that down. I have my measurement log open, which is a semi-useful thing if you're taking lots of measurements. And that, again, under Windows, if you want to open that, you can open measurement log. And when the ruler tool is active and something's been measured, you can just say record measurements, and it will record the score there, which is 3.92 essentially. So to figure out the width of the mouth, we can I have to find my calculator. There it is. So, oops. 3.92 times 1.33 is going to give us a mouth width of 5.21. So just 5 centimeters or so, a little over 5 centimeters. So we can measure that out too. So if I'm just going to eyeball it here. So if I just click and drag, well, the other thing we could do is 5.2 divided by 2 would be 2.6, right? So we can measure out 2.6 from the midline, which would be the smart thing to do. So if I grab my ruler tool and drag out, what did I say? 2.6. That's a wide mouth. So it's going to be something like that, and I can put another guide here, and I can measure out. Oh yeah, sorry. Lateral canine. Yeah. So remember the calculation was the mouth width is the two features on the mouth are chelion, Chelion, which we looked at, and to get chelion to chelion length, it's canine to canine length times 1.33. So that's a really wide mouth, actually. But that's the calculation that we have. So it implies that there is a anatomical relationship between the width of the canines and the width of the soft tissue mouth. So if everybody has this file, why don't you just try and work on that, and then I can come around and see that you're figuring Photoshop out, and I can help.